I'm Scott Cooney from Motorsports, and today we're going to be working on the 996 you see behind us. The fenders, we're going to replace them with nice fiberglass lightweight fenders to replace the metal ones and show you the procedure on how to do that. So we'll take you through the tools required, how it works, and show you the whole procedure from start to finish, removing the body panels and then putting the new panels back on. So with that, we'll show you the tools and we'll get started. So on our workbench you can see some of the tools we're going to need. We're going to need drill bits, obviously, a drill. I like the cordless drill because I can get in and move around. Some gloves, protect your hands from the fiberglass. A dust mask, we'll be doing some grinding, and some safety glasses, a Dremel tool, obviously some Torx, wrenches, and we'll be needing some 10mm wrenches, sockets, and miscellaneous tools. This is not a difficult procedure. Most home mechanics can do this. It should be not a problem, but I just want to show you some of the tools we'll be using today to get you prepared. So we've changed into clothes that we can work in, and now we have to start the process. First things first, we need to remove the front bumper cover. We're going to need to remove the headlights. We're going to have to get the wheels out of the way to remove the inner fender liners. And once we have all that off the car, then we can get to the fender and start replacing that. Alright, so we have the wheel off. Now the next step is we're going to take this light off. These side marker lights are fairly simple and straightforward. You just take them from the back, push here, pop it out, it comes out, and then you can unplug it just by pushing on the connector and pulling the light out. Once you have that out, we can get to the screw that's holding it on here. Next step we're going to have to do is remove the headlights. There's an access hole right here that allows us to get a 4mm nut socket in here to loosen these up. We just put it in, turn the headlight out, and then the headlight just slides out nice and easy. I like to go ahead and just set them in the trunk so they're not in our way. Then we'll get the other side as well, and then we'll start on the front bumper cover. Okay, so now for the front bumper cover, we have a couple of screws on the top here that we need to remove. We'll need to remove the screws on the side over here, and then underneath there's a couple of screws we need to get to underneath. So once we remove those screws, the bumper cover will just slide right off. So we're going to go ahead and remove those screws, and then we'll pull the bumper cover off. Now with all the screws removed, we can pull the bumper cover off. The next step in the process is we are to remove this inner fender liner, this piece and this piece. You want to take the left side off first, and then the right side. You'll need a screwdriver, a Torx bit, and then a 10mm either socket or wrench to remove the different screws and fasteners that hold this thing on. So with that, we'll get started on getting that put together. You can see that we now have the front one off. There was 2 screws here, a couple of push pins that you can see these are for, and with that, now we're going to start on the back side. And there's a 10mm nut here. There's one over here which we'll show you, and then a screw down here, and this piece will come off as well. So with that, I'm going to move the camera, and then we'll start taking off that back piece. Alright, the next thing we need to do is remove the 3. We want to get this Torx bit out of here. Put that aside, and now this fender liner should pop out for us pretty easily. There's one screw underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and get that, and then we'll be able to get this piece out. With that, we have that piece out, and now we can get in here and we can see the fender bolts that we need to get out up in here. So with that, now we've got that exposed. The next thing we need to do is get the side piece off for the light mount. Then we need to get the headlight tray out. We'll move the camera, and we'll get started on those pieces as well. Fine. What we have here is the headlight tray. There's 3 nuts, one underneath here, one on the back side, and then one in this corner that we'll need to get to. And then we want to make sure we take this out first. There's 2 little tabs in here that we take with a little screwdriver, push those tabs in, and then this comes out. That's very important before we move this headlight tray that we don't pull the wiring. And then we need to take this piece and this piece off to get this fender off. So that's what we'll start on now. So with that, we'll be right back. Alright, so now we got this piece off. We're going to take this piece very carefully off as well, set it aside. Now that allows us to get into this bolt, and we can get into the bolt up here. So now we're going to go ahead and get started on that. Once you get them started and loose, they come off fairly easy. Got the third one off, and now we can lift our tray out. We gotta go up a little bit. Now we've got our headlight tray out of the car. We can set that aside. With that, we can now take the fender bolts off, remove this fender. Now in the inner fender, we've got 3 bolts we need to be concerned with. We have one here, one there, another one up here, and then a third one way up on the top you can just barely see. Now in your car, if it's a street car, you would have a washer bottle in here. You can see the mounting points for that. We would just take that. There's a 10mm bolt. We take that down, pop that out, and then we get to these fender bolts. I already have this removed, but now we can see the 3 bolts we need to remove. These are 10mm. We'll remove those, and then we can work on the top. So I'll get those removed, we'll shift the camera, and then we'll show you from the top how to take that off. Our next step, now that we have this removed, is to remove these top fender bolts. Now in an effort that I don't have to remove the hood, there's 2 nuts here that I'm going to try and loosen. I've marked it with a pencil where they're at. I'm going to loosen those, and then try to pull the fender out from underneath it without having to change my hood. That way my hood position doesn't have to change, and hopefully I can slide the new fender right on in place of this one. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take the fender bolts off. We're going to loosen these bolts just enough that we can get them off. Like I said, being careful not to have to remove our hood position. So we'll got that loose. And then we'll get started on loosening the removing the fender bolts. I'm going to take the one off the top last, because I want to make sure that I've got everything else off first before I move that hood. I think it's vital important that we do that. We now have all the fender bolts off, so we're going to go ahead and try and see if I can lift this up enough, get this fender underneath there. Yeah, pop that out. We left our hood on. We now have the fender off the car. Now comes the fun part for the new fender. You can see there's indents that we'll need to drill out. What I like to do is drill a smaller little hole and then use a Dremel tool while it's on the fender to fine tune it before I put the bolts in it. So there's some things we'll have to drill out. We need to drill out the access hole here for the headlamps. We need to drill out, you'll see the 3 cutouts for the headlights. We'll get those cut out. We'll do a lot of cutting and drilling before we mount this fender, so we're going to go ahead and drill out the holes here on the side for the mounting the mount here for the fender, or the front bumper cover. As soon as we get that drilled, we'll be ready to mount. Another thing to keep in mind is we need to drill out 3 holes here that are already kind of mounted for the bottom bolts as well. So we'll go ahead and kind of work on that. I'll show you that here in a second, and then we'll get started on the rest of the car. Okay, we're going to use the Dremel tool now to grind these out a little bit. We'll skin them out, clean them all up with the Dremel tool, and we'll be ready to mount them on the car. Alright, here we go. We're going to go ahead and fit this, and test fit it, and see if we can't get this out of the car without having to remove the hood. Look at that, just like butter. We got a nice fit up here. We can bolt this back down. We've got our signs, and then we'll just take the Dremel tool and get these. Okay, we're going to work on these in here. And it looks like our pilot hole for the bottom one is actually pretty spot on. So we're going to go ahead and get that one in there. Okay, we now have the fender bolted on. We want to make sure that we can get this headlight adjusted properly, so we're going to fit this inside the fender. Set it down. We're going to leave this out for now, because I just want to put the headlight in and see if the height needs to be adjusted. You'll probably need to do this, and it's easier not to have that wiring in there.
40 thousandths by 20 thousandths. I mean, wow.
Fits a little good, but we're a little low in the back here, so we're going to take it out and go ahead and adjust that out. To adjust that out, all we do is take this piece and move it down a little bit.